Ignore the bags under my eyes. It's just the exhaustion. Okay. I've been exhausted for days. Not days. For weeks. I've been getting up all the way for a walk. It's not important. Today we're covering how to form the idea for your book. Some of you may have already done that. Some of you may have crafted an idea. You may have a full-fledged idea of what you want to do. You just don't know how to start it. That's fair. Some of us don't have an idea yet, and we need help on learning how to get one. Most authors, I think, don't hold me on that. I'm not every author, from my experience and from talking to people in school, work life, normal life, the writing club that I'm doing. Typically, find it the most enjoyable part of the writing process. Just spitballing ideas left and right, seeing what sticks to the wall, seeing what walks for you, seeing what drives your passion. It's all fun. But then you have to actually choose one to write. Turn an idea into a story where you actually have to get the words on the page and get the idea across to an audience is the harder part of actually spitballing ideas and figuring out what walks for you and what doesn't. It's a fun game. But that's why I'm here. I'm going to try and help you. Based on my experience of trying to figure out what the hell I want to write about, I'm going to help you figure out how to figure out the idea that you... What? What? I'm here to help you figure this shit out. First things first, you're going to want to brainstorm. You could do this with idea walls, you could do this with mapping, like brain mapping. You might have learned about how to do that in school, I'm not entirely sure. This thing. Or maybe you'll do like a pie chart. I've seen it done once or twice. Maybe you'll do those two circles, this thing. Maybe you'll just literally use a board and some pins and put it on a wall. And use some string to connect them if you think they could go together. I've seen people do that. Not just the scene from, I think, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That one. That scene. The one that got memed to hell and back. That one. I've seen people do that for spitballing ideas for writing or for creating art, which I have admittedly also done. Either way, hopefully you're going to get a lot of ideas out of that, and if you do, you can probably get multiple books out of that. I certainly have. I have a file on my laptop that literally has about 83 synopses of a plot waiting for me to work on them. Most of them are from when I was younger, and I'm going to have to workshop them, but that's not the point. The point is, you can get some mileage out of just one brainstorming session. Or 10. Who knows? Maybe you'll do 100. And if you don't have any ideas that you consider original enough that you want to do, don't worry. You can pull off something else. There's this thing. We'll cover copyright and trademarks in a different video, but for now, there's this thing called public domain. Public domain for copyright. Effectively, you can use it however which way you want. Like, for instance, Frankenstein entered public domain in recent decades. Yeah, I think decades. It was before that one Frankenstein movie came out recently. It's been in the public domain for a while. It's kind of like the Wolfman and the Mummy. They've been in public domain for quite a while, because after a certain amount of time, a character or book just automatically enters public domain. I think it has to be after the original author's death, but past that point, they're in the public domain. It's like something ridiculous, like 60 or 70 years after their death or something. But point is, you can draw from old mythologies. You can draw from older stories, like Frankenstein. You can draw from, like, Santa Claus. Santa Claus is in the public domain. He has to be at this point. The legend is too old. But, like, myths, legends, religions, it's a little iffy, but technically they would fall under that. You can also go by past experiences, or by past experiences that you've had with others, or by someone else's experience if you get their consent to use it as inspiration. Which I have, once or twice. You can also try focusing on a specific genre when you brainstorm. Like, some people would focus on, what can I make a comedy? Or, what can I turn into a horror story? Horror is great for this, by the way. They make the most mundane shit scary. I'll have a whole video for separate genres. Maybe a video per genre. What? Maybe a video for each genre, because I have a lot to say on horror. I have some to say on comedy and romance. I have some, definitely, to say on sci-fi. Historical, I don't have a lot to say on that. I don't know. It might be in a group episode. That's not the point. The point is, you have a treasure trove of places to go for inspiration. I've seen some people, when they do their brainstorming, they go to a specific spot. Like, you might have a little nook in your house. You might have a desk that you use. You might have a specific library, or maybe somewhere in the park that you like to use. I've been doing this whole thing without my microphone. Okay. With my microphone in hand and hopefully less crappy audio than I had before, let's do this. But you can also get inspiration through doing basic research. Like, no joke, I have gotten a lot of inspiration just from falling down a Google rabbit hole. Like, I went from researching marine biology to researching the epitemology? It's the study of disease and disorders. Treasure trove right there. But you can also get a lot of inspiration from researching things like cosmic theory, conspiracy theory, philosophy, physics. Is a real brain buster, let me tell you. Physics get really weird when you get really specific. Or just researching history. Or maybe you're going to research a specific culture, or a culture that is close enough to the one you want to craft. You can use it as inspiration, and maybe you'll get some story ideas out of it. Maybe they do certain festivals, or they do certain events or celebrations. You can use that. Maybe they have little behavioral tics. Like, for instance, I'm pretty sure half of America has some weird bag just full of bags because we have that whole reuse, recycle thing stuck in our heads from when we were growing up and from when our parents were growing up. We'll go back to research in another video. For now, we're going to focus on ideas. So once you have your idea, you're going to want to expand on it a little bit. And this is where it gets kind of complicated. So we'll talk considerations. What you have to consider when you're building an idea to form a plot. So you may notice in some TV shows or even some movies, or technically, I guess, video games, I mean, they would be considered side quests, a B plot and an A plot. So the B plot is not as, front and center as the A plot, but the B plot does help carry your story along. It might help you smooth out some pacing. You can use it for character development, for world building. You can use it for slice of life bullshit if you want. That's my favorite stuff to write. Or you could just focus on your A plot. A lot of movies generally just have an A plot because they don't really have time to go into B plots. You'll notice a lot of TV shows, though, especially ones with large casts, will have an A plot, a B plot, sometimes a C plot. You would mostly use these to help carry your story. If you don't think your first idea is enough to actually carry a plot of a novel, you could just write a novella, but we'll get into the intricacies of that in another video too, probably. The point is, when you're crafting plots and subplots, don't just use whatever you threw at the wall to use as your subplot. It has to actually make sense to the themes of the story that you're writing. It has to make sense in the story that you're writing, unless the whole point is that you don't want it to make sense in the story that you're writing because you want it to be kind of like a gotcha moment, which you can do. That's valid. But generally, you want to keep it related to the concepts you already have. It's just going to make it easier for you. If you throw every idea you have at the wall, it's not going to be easy for you. It's going to be like the TV shows that have 18 seasons when they really should have stopped at like 4. And finally, the part some of you may not like to hear, because you might be like me and you're a little impatient or you feel like you don't have time, give yourself some time. Your brain is not going to have a fully fledged idea in a day. It's probably just not going to happen. You need time to marinate the idea. You need it to just rest in your head. Your brain's probably going to work on it in the background. It'll come up with stuff you can use. Just don't hyper fixate on it to the point where it starts to impact your actual life. I made that mistake. I forgot to eat because I was workshopping a story so hard one summer when I was still in school. I forgot to have dinner multiple nights in a row. The only reason I had lunch is because my sister was also home and she would come in and ask me, hey, have you eaten today? And I'd have to be like, no. And she would have to drag me out of the room to go eat because I would just get so hyper focused on what I was trying to do, trying to formulate this book. Don't do that. Don't sacrifice your health for this. That's not worth it. Learn from my mistakes. And marinating on an idea, it might take you a day, it might take you 2 days, it might take you 2 months, it might take you a couple of years. You never know. You don't know when your idea is going to be fully fledged and ready to blossom when you write it down. Sometimes, like me, your idea will still be marinating even as you're writing it. My first book that I published, Orchid Faith, I got halfway through the book when my brain suddenly had a eureka moment, in consideration to the plot. I had a eureka moment because the idea was still marinating in the back of my head even as I was writing it. And I changed the book based on that idea. And you know what? That's fine. If you want to change your direction halfway through, that's fine. Be conscious of that when you go back to edit it, just so, you don't miss something and have a giant plot hole left in your wake. But if you want to change it because you've been marinating on the idea, you're halfway through the book, or you're a third of the way, or you're 2/3 of the way, and you suddenly get a brainstorm of an idea that works way better, just use it, man. See if it fits, see if it works, use it. It's your book, you can do whatever you want with it. But don't be impatient. Be patient with yourself. It takes time. And it's better to take your time. You'll be able to ground out some rough edges. You'll be able to better connect plot points or sequences. It's okay to take a minute to just consider everything when you're thinking about it. Formulating one idea might take you longer than you think. That's fine. It might take you less time than you think. That's also fine. It's probably just not going to be fully formed. And even if you get a fully formed idea, you may change it. I have a book that I have been trying to write for over a decade. Oh my God, it's been 16 years. Holy shit. Damn. Even if your idea arrives perfectly fully formed out of the womb and ready to go and dance the night away, it might not stay the same. And that's fine. As you do research, or you build your characters, or you develop the world, or you develop the rules of your story, like, oh my God, we'll talk magic systems in another video, but oh my God. All of these things are going to change your story. Everything sort of becomes a weird amalgamation after you get past that initial point of an idea when it comes to crafting the story versus writing the story. Research is just one aspect of it. Character design, character development, plot, conflict, all of those juicy bits that make up the story that you want to craft and you want to hook people with, they all kind of just meld together into one big idea at some point. That's the goal. That's the main goal. But you're probably not even going to notice it's happening. I didn't notice it happening when I was first starting to write. I didn't notice all of the things I threw in. Eventually I would look at them. I'd go over them again. I'd go over my outline, my idea chart. And I tossed them. I tossed a lot of them. I tossed at least half the material I had for that book. But some of it I did save for books down the road. Because I still liked the idea, it just didn't fit with the one I was currently working on. And that's fine. All of that's fine. The method may be different. You may be like me, where you have stuff stuck onto a board on the wall, or you have 1,000 papers lined on the floor around you when you're trying to figure out where everything goes and trying to form an actual timeline of events. And through that, you learn how to organize yourself better so you don't have to suffer again every time. Wish I would have learned that 6 years ago. It would have made my life a lot easier. Brainstorm. Form an idea. I don't really have advice on how better to form an idea. A lot of people you could just Google ways to form ideas. You're going to find a lot of stuff for how to form essays. You might have to just construe that a bit towards, writing a book. It's entirely up to you. You can make a story out of anything, especially if it's a fictional story. Even a fictional story set in a real place. That happens all the time. The world is your oyster, effectively, especially in terms of ideas. Even ideas that you might not think are original. Like, just count the ways that Cinderella or The Little Mermaid have been told and told and told again. Like, Disney is not the version of those stories. That is the original. The original stories are from the Grimm brothers, which I think were based off of older folklore, and they're really screwed up, honestly. Like, I can see why Disney went the hyper-censored route in terms of, especially the ending of The Little Mermaid. Yikes. Sidebar, if you've never looked up the ending of The Little Mermaid, the folklore, not the Disney movie, it's a yikes. I really don't know where I'm going with this. I started this whole thing with the idea that you'll just start morphing these bare bones into a proper story and where you can get inspiration from. And then I realized I don't know how to describe my way of getting an idea. Half of my ideas I got from a dream that I wrote down in a fever when I woke up. I started keeping a notebook next to my bed because then I would forget them if I got up. Or you use a past experience from a friend or yourself, and if you want to keep it, out of the fantastical, or maybe you do want to make it fantastical. I remember finding a trail when I was younger with a group of friends and my sister, and we went on a walk, and at some point I look up, and I noticed the trees had formed something of an archway, and all I could think was, this is a fairy tunnel. And you could do something with that. You could do anything with that. Just that one visual in your head, a snapshot of a memory, can hold a treasure trove of ideas that you can use. You could look up photos on Google and try and create a story around getting to that point or getting off that point. Maybe you have a photo of just a random tunnel or something. Maybe something just seems out of place. You could build something off of that. Maybe a character is there and they're leaving, or maybe it's them arriving there. How did they get there? Where are they going afterward? Why are they there? You can literally make an idea of anything. You can look through an old picture book. You can look through a photo album, try and build something off of that. Just use anything you can. Hell, I have formulated an idea for a completely different story solely based on the cover of a sketchbook and a book I already owned. I have a book, something, I think it's called Religion for Atheists. That cover started formulating an idea for me. I just looked at a cover of a completely unrelated book. You can get it anywhere. That's the thing I guess that's what I'm trying to get across. Don't worry about it. You'll form an idea. You'll get there. Even if it takes you a while, you can get there. You just have to open your brain a little bit. And if it's hard for you to formulate ideas, that's why I'm like, go onto something that's in the public domain. Like Greek or Viking or Roman or Japanese mythologies. Those are rife with ideas. They're rife with them. And mythologies are considered open copyright. You can use it however you want. Just look at the number of different ways you can describe a Wendigo, for God's sakes. That's Native American. Or all the different ways that the Greek gods have been portrayed. Or all of the different stories you can craft out of those. Think of all of the different ways that we've taken Japanese or Chinese mythology, how they use their Japanese and Chinese mythologies in their own cultures, in their own TV shows, their own movies, their own books. See, this is why it's a fun thing. Well, I think that's all I have time for today. And I think that's as much as I can think to say in one sitting. I might get an idea for how to formulate an idea in a later video. I might do a part 2 to this. I don't really know. We're just going to have to see. For now, I'm going to say goodbye, and I will see you in the next one. In the next one, we're going to cover how research makes the dream work.